Good day, everyone. So, Yae Miko review time. I hope you all have won the 50-50 and that you've got your Yae Miko. And if not, I hope she comes home very, very soon. But I've been playing her, and I think this is going to be my actual formal review. And what better way to start it off than compare her with Fischl? And not just to compare her, but also then put the two in the same team and see what we can do in the Spiral Abyss. So, I think the thing about Yae Miko that's going to put a lot of people off is the fact that she's difficult to manage, easy to play, but very difficult to manage in between your rotations. And this is one thing that I sort of noticed, but after like really playing with her, I finally got like the gist. So, and by the way, guys, you can relax. There's no Bennett, there's no Kazuha, there is no Kujosara. We're just gonna give you the raw F2P, the good deal damage on Yae Miko. So, what is the intent and purpose behind Yae Miko? Well, she is a sub DPS. She's not a main DPS from my findings. Very much like Fischl, she is giving you some sort of off-field skill that's going to continuously tick in the background. So as you saw there with Oz, he is doing a bit of damage, and once I press my elemental burst, I get a reset on Oz. And very much in the same way, this is what Yae Miko is going to do as well with her totems. So very constantly we're getting that tick damage, and we're going to get those electro particles being generated, as you can see on screen. Thank you, Oz. Just boom, just charging up Fischl. And again, that constant ticking, tick, tick. That's also the same with Yae Miko, but I think this is where Yae Miko sort of differs a bit from Fischl in the sense that she gives you more like mobility, and there's certainly like a very like high skill ceiling with this mobility. It is very fun to use this to dodge and maneuver around the field. What I found in the Spiral Abyss is that if you've got Kokomi's jellyfish, you can actually play around the jellyfish in a much more intuitive manner. You can even very quickly reposition back to your jellyfish. So a lot of people say, well, you know, Kokomi's jellyfish bad because it's only stuck in one place. But I think Yae Miko gives like a mobility aspect that could be very flexible in that sense. And the other thing also to notice, hopefully you can see this on screen now, where you can see Oz is now doing a bit more damage because we're running the Viridescent Venom set on Sucrose. So the moment she swirls, we're getting increased damage, and you'll also see the same with Yae. So this is very important as well. You can see that base damage that we're getting is also being increased. And I think this is where my strategy for sort of putting Yae and Kokomi in the same team is going to sort of come together. You've got this baseline of damage that's consistently ticking. This is between like Fischl and Yae Miko's skill. So if you looked at the screen, like with this swirl as well, effectively you've got almost about 20k that's just ticking in the background. And obviously if you add in Kokomi's jellyfish and Ocean Clam, then the passive damage that you're doing per second really starts adding up over time. And then all you need to do is weave in some burst damage in between. So like either like a quick burst of Oz, Kokomi's elemental burst, or Yae Miko's burst, and then you've got a very nice consistent team that'll just consistently do this damage. Again, just the ticking over time. And look at what I'm doing here with Yae Miko. Look how quickly I could actually reposition around Perpetual Mechanical Array. And that's what I really love about it, is just this play style. But I think there's also a big caveat to all of this, and that is how good you are at managing multiple cooldowns and keeping track of it. I think for a lot of people, they're going to be put off by Yae just because you've got to manage all of these complexities, and I think it's not as straightforward as a lot of theory crafting rotations would have you do. So very traditionally, people would want to press certain buttons in certain orders, and I think what happens here with Yae Miko, she very much lends herself to a asynchronous sort of playstyle. In other words, you're executing different abilities in different orders as and when you need to, and I think this is where Yae Miko will really shine. And that's what I love about her. I really love the fact that you've got way more flexibility with her, and that she's almost got like zero downtime unless you don't manage your cooldowns between your team members. Now, one of the things that we haven't really been spoken about is how do you build like Yae Miko? Well, I think the standard attack, electro damage, and then sort of crit rate, I think I'm running like crit damage here. Build is really does like work well with her, but Yae Miko's got this passive skill, and I'm not exactly sure why the developers have sort of put it that way, but you can increase like this little totem damage if you increase her elemental mastery. So I don't know whether they've always intended Yae to be used in a sort of taser team with either Kazuha or Sucrose. If you guys don't know, Kazuha and Sucrose can both increase the elemental mastery of your teammates, which means Yae is just going to hit like way harder with her. And that's sort of why I'm pairing Yae and Sucrose. It's not just because Taser is Taser. There's a bit of a method in the madness, but I do think, and this is just pure speculation, there might be a future character that would work really, really well with Yae, because at the moment it just feels like that part of her passive talent is not being fully utilized. But then again, I don't have Kazuha. I wish I had, because I think it would have given us much more interesting results in any case. But as I promised, no Kazuha, so there is no Kazuha. This is just the raw free-to-play, and I think Sucrose honestly does more than good enough job. So I know it's always a bit controversial, Sucrose versus Kazuha. Honestly, at a free-to-play C0 level, I'll just use Sucrose. That's just sort of my take. But that aside, one of the fun things about Yae Miko is then look at this mobility. Just being able to run ring around a Rosie with the enemies is just so much fun. And I think this is at this point where I sort of want to take a bit of a detour from Yae. One of the things that sort of stood out to me about all the YouTube showcases so far about Yae Miko is how everyone just focused on her damage and like, oh my god, big damage numbers. As an F2P, you can do these crazy amounts and whatever. But I think what a lot of people are missing is like the practical aspects of her. The how do you manage her? Do you always need to do a triangle? Is there like a different way in which you can configure these totems? Do you always need to have 3 totems up? Is there a better way to manage these cooldowns? And a lot of these things are not answered. And I think when I was like thinking about this and looking at the other YouTube channels, it kind of hit me. I understood now why a lot of people hated Kokomi. I mean, when Kokomi came out, you couldn't just Bennett Kazuha and then suddenly do big damage numbers, because that's not really how Kokomi works. So a lot of people couldn't see big numbers, and therefore they thought the unit was bad. And as it turns out, Kokomi, for all the basic skills, well, unless you're using it as a jellyfish bot, she's actually got a very deep, like, sort of skill set, or like there's quite a lot you need to do to bring the best out of Kokomi, and it's not always just that obvious. And I think that's where a lot of people missed Kokomi, and I think the same is sort of also going to happen with Yae. I think a lot of people are just going to focus too much on the damage aspect, and they're really going to sort of lose like the other sort of more intuitive, like the actual playmaking experience with Yae. And I think a lot of people might actually underrate her as a result. But in my opinion, I think she's a solid sub damage dealer. There's nothing wrong that I can see, like sort of in her kit, or there's nothing overly concerning. She does her job, and I'm sure there's a piece of the Yae Miko puzzle that even I myself am still missing. But hopefully in the future we'll uncover this, as well as some creative team comps that do not have Bennett in them at all. I am curious to see how Yae Miko does work in a mono electro team, so that'll probably be the next video and so on. I think what I'm going to do for that video is I'll actually nerf my own Raiden Shogun, so I'll take away an artifact and I'll take away Engulfing Lightning, so hopefully she'll be a bit more relatable. And yeah, I think that'll be quite interesting. Oh, by the way, my friend Shadow here, I'll show it now in a bit, but he did win his 50-50. He's like, he lost 3 50-50s as a free-to-play player, so he's very like skeptical and all of that, but he actually won his 50-50, so I'm quite happy that he's also got Yae. But that is it. This is just my initial review and impressions. I like the unit. I think she is absolutely awesome, and if you guys have been sticking around until this time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.